So first of all, Root Cause Collective, we are an alternative to an agency. So we are a group of freelancers who work together. We all work separately on our own freelance projects. But when we have projects that require a mix of skills and we need different people to come in, or very big projects where it's beneficial to have more people working on it, then we basically assemble the right people for the job and we come together and work on things. So there's 4 of us here, I think, today. There's me, there's Rhiannon, who's here, Glyn, Thomas and Rebecca. And you'll see Rebecca because she has a baby, so she's really easily identifiable. She's still technically on maternity leave, but here to represent as well. So yeah, come chat to any of us at any point today. So today we're going to look at 5 top tips to help improve supporter recruitment via digital in 2026. And the key thing is the only constant is change, and that has never been more true for supporter recruitment on digital, obviously. Digital channels continuously changing, they're continuously updating, messing with us, trying to confuse us, but keeping us on our toes. So the only way to approach supporter recruitment now is to continuously adapt and learn and try new things. The first tip is based on that, is that an always approach is really the key to success now. And I mean, that's been true for a while. It's not that that's new, but it is increasingly important to work with the platforms in the way that they work best. You really need that always on approach. And that first thing is to stop thinking in campaigns, which is really hard, I know, because that is how we work in teams across campaigning and fundraising. We tend to think in campaigns. But really short, choppy, short-lived campaigns, they just don't work on the platforms in the way that they used to, and especially with Meta and Google Ads, increasingly wresting control from us as advertisers and trying to take everything and do everything themselves, and also processing much more information than they used to and working on much more complicated algorithms than they used to. They need time to learn and they need time to optimize. And very often, a lot of the problems that we see with digital campaign or online campaigns, and when I say campaigns, I just mean digital marketing campaigns, a lot of the challenges we see is that something might be just starting to work and it gets turned off. And then you just wasted budget on something that was spent a lot of money learning, but then not a lot of time actually bearing the fruit of that learning and actually like optimizing and doing well. And also, it has always been true, test, learn, refine. That is not new. But increasingly, you really do need that strategic approach that lets you find what works and then scale it and adapt it over time too. And that really ideally means a dedicated budget, a strategic approach across the organisation. It means trying not to work in silos and trying to really consolidate across an organisation in the to achieve shared objectives. That's really hard to do, I know. And smaller campaigns within an organisation can also prove the model if that's what's possible right now. But you still need that dedicated budget. You need the time to let things optimise. You need time to refine it and learn and adapt as you go. I mean, I have multiple anecdotes, which at some point, if you want to catch me later, we can talk about. But one of the clearest anecdotes for me is Google Ads, because Google Ads doesn't optimize as quickly as Meta, and it does take time. But trying to launch Google search ads at the same time to land with an appeal drop, and an appeal drop is 1 week, right? It's the day where it lands, and then there's kind of the tail end of that over a week. Google Ads, even search ads, take at least 2 weeks to optimize, usually a little bit longer. So by the time you launch your Google Ads, but by the time they're actually gaining any kind of traction, you've turned the campaign off and you've lost all that momentum with the ads themselves. And then the key thing is to play to the strengths of different platforms and be clear about those, like understand what the different strengths of the different platforms are. So, for example, Meta generally learns and optimizes more quickly. I mean, we'll see if that continues to be true now that they've launched Andromeda and things like that. It generally has delivered a lower cost per lead. You have more control over how you spend at ad set level. That is still true. And for now, you have more control over creative combinations than you do in, say, Google Ads. And just the M&R benchmarks kind of prove that Meta was amongst the lowest costs per leads in the 2026 results. And then Google Ads, and I'm talking specifically about paid, so not grants. Obviously, that's a different beast altogether. And again, happy to talk about that later if someone wants to get into that. Google Ads, it takes a lot longer to exit learning. It takes longer for ads to optimize. That does depend a little bit on the campaign types that you're using within Google Ads, and there's lots of different options. So obviously, depending on your objectives and your audiences, you want to make sure you're using the right kind of campaign types. It generally delivers a lower cost per donation, and search ads specifically in Google Ads, they reach a higher intent audience. This is not to say, obviously, that Meta can't work for donations and the Google Ads can't work for sign-ups. I know a lot of organizations are testing different approaches in Meta Ads, like value exchange offers for donations and things like that, and also lead gen for telemarketing, which obviously is a way to combine Meta Ads strength with lead gen, with then the conversion tactics around telephone. And also, it's not to say that Google Ads can't deliver cost per lead, like solid cost per leads. I worked with an organization last year that by the end, after again testing, refining, adapting, got to a cost per lead of around £2 per lead on Google Ads, so not bad. And another campaign in the US that ended up with a cost per lead on Google Ads of $1.06, and a cost per new lead of $1.86, I think it was. So it's about testing what works for you as well, across channel, across audiences, across content, all of that. But yeah, just to say that in M&R benchmarks again kind of prove that donations, cost per donation is a bit performs well on Google Ads. So crucially, tracking. And these are all the really boring things. I know this is not usually what people want to hear, because it's all the really boring process stuff that just has to be done and is increasingly important because of the way that the platforms are changing. And like I say, with all of the use of AI tools, so in Meta, the Advantage Plus, the Andromeda, and in Google Ads, the different kind of campaign types like Performance Max, the settings like AI Max and search ads, all of that kind of stuff, they need information to optimize. Like, they've taken the control from us about how we optimize the ads, and because of that, they need information back. And if they don't get the right information back, they can't optimize properly. So your tracking setup really has to be tight. And I mean, obviously that means you have to be clear about what's needed. And that is increasingly hard. It changes a lot and it's really hard to stay on top of it. And obviously the tracking restrictions for organizations like ours in the last year makes it really tricky. Like, if you can no longer use pixels on your website because you're a health charity, etc., then it's really important to understand how you're going to work around that to use Meta Ads. Lead forms is obviously one of the key ways you keep everything in Meta, and it helps Meta understand who's converting, etc., and that's a really strong way to do it. But yeah, you need to be clear about how you're doing it. And then Google Ads. So there's different ways in Google Ads to set up conversion goals and conversion actions, one of which is to use your GA4 events. So if you've got events set up in GA4, but the kind of tightest way is to use Google Tag Manager, because that allows you to turn on a setting called enhanced conversions. And what that allows Google to do is send hashed first-party data back to Google Ads. And that just means that you're getting more accurate information in Google Ads, and that also then means that your Google Ads are optimizing for the right thing. They're not just randomly optimizing for the things that you don't really care about. They're optimizing for the thing you care about. And just as an example, so this is a campaign I worked on last year, and we were testing Google Tag Manager to see if using Google Tag Manager as the basis for conversion goals in Google Ads did actually deliver more accurate results than GA4 events. And you can see there the actual results were 20 monthly gifts, 204 single gifts in the campaign. Google Tag Manager in Google Ads tracked 15 monthly gifts and 178 single gifts. So they didn't capture all of them, but they got a lot of them. And GA4 conversion got 57 gifts, wasn't split across monthly and single. So you can see there that, the quality of the information also helped improve the outcome of the campaign, because Google Ads was able to optimize based on what we really cared about, which was the two monthly gifts and single gifts. So your email list can still be used to help optimize your targeting, for now at least. And you can use your email list to basically guide the AI tool. So whether, if you're using the smart bidding in Google Ads or in Meta's Advantage Plus targeting, you can still use your email list either as a suppression list so that you are not trying to target the same people you already have, or to just help the platforms build a picture of who you're looking for and the kind of people that are you're looking for. So, tip 3, so targeting obviously or tracking really important for all of that. And then tip 3, the balance between quality and quantity, which I think is a big challenge and a change in how we're all used to working in terms of, obviously, we always needed a lot of content to test digital ads and support a recruitment within that. But now we need more than ever. And it's increasingly becoming a little bit of a challenge in terms of how we manage that. So obviously, building a big bank of assets is your friend. And it's about agility, I guess, in some ways as well, right? Like you're trying to adapt, learn, refine, find what works, and to feed the algorithms in the way that they want to now take the control from us and spin out as many variations as they can to find what works. We need to keep feeding it. I have found that the best way to manage that is to test lo-fi options. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be branded. It doesn't have to be all singing, all dancing. And actually, that's more important. Like, lo-fi is more important, especially on the platforms and the way that they work now. And actually using tools like Canva to build a template that you can drop different images in all the sizes that you need it is actually one of the easiest things to do. So Canva, especially for Google Ads, where you need, if you're running Performance Max, you need 20 up to 20 images, and it used to be 5 videos. It's now 15 videos that you can add in some accounts, and they need to be horizontal, they need to be portrait, they need to be square, because it just wants all of the ways that it can present an ad. It wants the option to do that so that it can find what's going to work best. And so something like Canva and having templates that you can just drop different images in, change the copy, and just keep producing content that you can test is a really useful approach to that. And then AI, because within all these platforms, obviously now, they also have AI tools that will help you write and develop content. And I would say, I would test it with caution. So, for example, in Google Ads, search ads now have a setting called AI Max. And what AI Max will do is 2 things. It will customize text. So it'll take the text that you've given it and it will adapt it and it will create new versions. And it will also send people to the website it thinks is most relevant to your ad. It's not so useful for paid campaigns where what you really want is someone to donate, because obviously you tend to have a very fixed, like, we have this landing page, we want people to go here. It's good for things like grants ads, where it doesn't really necessarily, like, what you want is traffic and you want people to get to the site. And yeah, it can work quite well. And I've seen it write copy that is not terrible and actually usable and not so badly off message that you'd be worried. But I would approach it with caution and I wouldn't trust it without observation. So I would always be checking what it's doing and checking how it's using what it's writing. And I say that too because if you know the data reportal, the digital reports that they do, which are really useful insights, their last digital report for the UK showed that I think it was like 70% of people are really concerned, are expressing concern about what's real and what's fake on the internet. And you don't want to be part of that, right? You don't want your organization associated with any kind of doubt about what's real and what's not. There's just an example from Reddit, like a whole Reddit thread on this is AI slop. And people kind of looking for the tells in content. And you really don't want your organization to be part of that. So I would say, yeah, use AI where it makes sense, but be cautious about it. And then the key thing, match the creative with the channel. I have had so many campaigns where obviously we've all worked in Meta for a lot longer than we've worked in Google Ads. I would say that that's true. I have found that people are much more comfortable with Meta. They've been running Meta ads for longer because it has been the channel that has worked best for us as a sector in general. You cannot just take the Meta content that you've done and adapt it to Google Ads, for example. It just doesn't work in the same way. The platforms have different specifications for different kinds of content, like I said, and you need to adapt the content. So it's not that you can't use the same content, but you then need to understand how you need to adapt it. So for example, in Google Ads Performance Max, you can have images with copy, with text over them, but Google Search will nearly always nix that. It will always hit a policy violation for too much text on a graphic. And it's because if you think about like search results on your phone, if you're looking at your phone and you're looking at a search result and it's got a tiny little image in the corner in a square, if you've got copy over that, it's really hard to read. So that's why. But it nearly always hits a policy violation. And then there's just two examples I took from the Meta ad library. So randomly, not targeting anyone, but you'll see like the ad, and they're both videos, and I'm not going to play them for you, but you can check them, you can look them up. They're on the Facebook or the Meta ad library. You can see the shelter one has a low ad impression. And I mean, obviously that's dependent on, they were obviously testing a lot of different variations, so they had different ads versions running. But the difference really between the two videos was they're both in the same, like they're both in the, obviously for Instagram, the portrait setting, but the shelter one was much more charity video. Like you could tell it was a charity video. It had a lot of stats. It had a lot of voiceover. It it used copy in that kind of like set way between images of people. And then the other version, the Greenpeace ad was much more native to the content that you find on the platform. And that's really the point. The point is make sure your content is native, that it fits the platform that you're in, that it's what people expect to see, what they're seeing more generally outside the sector in the content that they see. And it'll feel much less like an ad and much more like engaged content that they want to actually view and engage with. And then tip 4, report on the metrics that matter most. And again, not new, but really something that we see again and again, people not doing and getting really kind of occupied with the top of the funnel metrics that are in the platforms, because obviously there's a huge amount of information within each ad platform. And when you're looking at that, and they're important for different things, obviously you need to be tracking what's happening at each stage of the supporter journey from ad to conversion. But it's crucial to report on the objectives that matter for the campaign. So not just ad performance, not just tracking what's happening in the ad platforms, but what happens afterwards. And it's not, part of the point about that is it's not always easy to see how campaigns are really performing early on. Like the ad results might be great, but the conversions are lacking, and or the ad results might not be looking brilliant. But you need time to see whether they're actually converting, and then look at the balance of costs and cost per leads and cost per donation across the whole lifetime of the campaign. We see a lot of organizations who just aren't setting up their reporting in a way that allows them to really, really report on what matters and really look at what matters. So as an example, this is a campaign that we worked on with Refugee Action. It's a community fundraising ads. So obviously community fundraising, the ad asks are slightly different. But in terms of the results, so 109 people signed up, and the CPL, the cost per lead, was £18, which is really high, right? Like in general for lead gen especially, what you're looking for is much, much lower than that. And 41 people of the people who signed up actually participated. But the actual money raised, the campaign had a really high return on ad spend. So for the money spent, the actual income off the back of it was really successful. But we didn't know that until you get to the end of that whole project and the whole process. So it's kind of like trying to figure out in your reporting and in your reporting cycles as well, how you're going to make decisions and at what points you're going to kind of critically call it. And you see this a lot with Google Ads because Google Ads, like I said, does take a long time to optimize. And, within 3 weeks, people are kind of like, oh, the cost per donation is like 200 and something pounds or whatever. And it's it's hard to hold your nerve. I find it hard to hold my nerve. But especially when you're taking a test, learn, refine approach, it's better to hold your nerve, learn what's actually going to work, and learn where in the journey things are going wrong. It's not necessarily just ads, it could be in the ads, it could be on the landing page, etc. So just as another example, we had a leprosy mission campaign, and the cost per lead was 152, which is not bad now. At the time, wasn't brilliant. It was when we were still able to get leads for like 50p in Meta before everything went wonky. But the conversion to donor was 11%, which is incredibly high. So again, it's just about like focusing on the reporting and the things that matter most. And then optimize the whole journey. So it's not just about the ads. It's also about everything that happens after the ads. I mean, obviously that's relevant in Meta if you're doing the lead forms, and that's keeping everything in Meta, making sure that that's all working. But especially for Google Ads, where you're not keeping people in the system and you're sending them to donation pages or sign-up pages, etc., then testing those pages and making sure those pages are converting people, and that you're actually tracking the conversion rates from the landing, like people who land on the page to actually what they do. And again, also really true for search ads. I've had a lot of people want to work on search ads, but then search is especially true for search, because your landing page has to be relevant to your keywords and to your copy. And if it's not, Google penalizes you, like the system penalizes you. It won't run the ads as effectively. So you really need, but I think it's true for all ads. I mean, search is where you'll see it most. It'll hit most in the results, but I think it's true for everything. Like you want the whole process to be smooth. You want people to see great ads and then click through and then see a great landing page and convert and then see a great thank you page, which I think Ali is talking about later from Forward Action. So I think like all of that is really important, and you need to make sure that it really aligns. And then tip 5, keep engaging people. And I say it because we say it a lot and it's still true. It's always been true. It's still true. But keep people engaged after you recruit them. Value your email list. We see lots of people spend a lot of time, effort and money on lead gen and trying to get people in the door, and then abandon them because their email program is not up and running, it's not well defined. They maybe have a great welcome journey that people go on initially, but then after that journey ends, it's kind of we won't talk to you for 4 months, but then it's Christmas, so you'll get a lot of fundraising asks for 4 weeks. And that happens a lot. And I mean, I get it. Like it's busy and it's hard. It's hard to keep an email program going, and it's hard to build it in a way that embeds the process for coming up with content, producing the content, sending the email, reporting on the email. All of that is work. It is a lot of work, but it's work that I would strongly advise investing in and defending within organizations, because in the age of ever-changing algorithms and AI and blah, 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 your email list is still your best way to communicate with the people who support your cause. Email is still the most direct digital route you have to those people. So yeah, value it. And it isn't one and done. It is a process, obviously. It is a thing that just you have to keep doing, you have to keep engaging. And we all know that. It doesn't make it easy to do, but I just really liked this example from Freedom from Torture. I thought it was a really good email in terms of celebrating success and making supporters part of that. And remembering to go back to people, like especially if you have live campaigns, fundraising or more advocacy-focused campaigns that like Actually was saying earlier that, and Kim was saying earlier that you keep people involved and that you keep them part of the process. And then also going back to the point about like reporting on what matters, also report over time. So again, and again, thinking about lead gen and supporter recruitment as an always on process. Don't forget about people. Like you don't know how successful lead gen has been really, unless you're reporting over time. You don't know someone who comes in and that you recruit via a hand raise or a petition action, something like that. They might not donate straight away. Your conversion rate might be low, but you hit them with the right ask at the right time in their lives. 6 months later, maybe they will donate. A year later, maybe they will donate. And it kind of goes to this point about thinking about your supporters as once they've signed up, they're people who care about what you're doing. They care about the issue. And they will support in different ways at different times, depending where they are in their life, what they're able to do, what message resonates with them. And again, going back to this email as a program and always like ongoing program, that, you know, it is the best way to keep talking to people, and you don't know how they might engage at a different point in time. So keep reporting. It was a few years ago, but I think Rhiannon might be able to tell whether it was Care 2 had good stats from somebody about, like, it was, maybe it was freedom from torture, but over 2 years, actually it might have been Compassion in Rural Farming, but over 6 months, over 18 months, over 2 years, how lead gen, people recruited through lead gen had performed. And that gives you your true return on ad spend, because then you actually know what you're working with. So setting up your data to do that is a really good thing to do. And then keep the wheel turning. Always, this is always on. It doesn't end. It's not a campaign. It's not one and done. It is a process. It doesn't mean you have to keep running the same campaigns, obviously, always on, but that your entire setup and your entire process is about recognizing that we will keep testing, we will keep refining. When something stops working, we will test something new, and we will just keep that process going. It's never going to be finished, I'm sorry. And it is a lot of work, but if you can keep that process going, it gets easier over time because you are doing it all the time and you know what you're doing with it. And it just makes everything work a bit better. So the 5 key takeaway: always on, make sure you're tracking responses so that platforms can optimize. Make it easy to produce and test creative quickly. Build those templates. If you don't have them already, make it easy on yourself. Report on the metrics that matter most. And don't forget to keep engaging with people once you've got them. And then, bonus tip, AI tools are helpful, but they're not always right. And Google Ads and Meta they're increasingly trying to push us to use all the AI tools, and that's great, keep testing them, but don't assume they're right. They get it really wrong sometimes, and the results are not necessarily always better than what you would do yourself. So just, don't always believe what the system tells you. And that's especially true for things like policy violations. I'm sure you've all had your battles with the system telling you that something's not working. I've had, in the last 3 weeks, Google Ads across multiple accounts keep telling me that we're violating financial verification policies, which can't be true across all the organisations. So it's clearly a glitch. So I'm just saying, they're not infallible. They get it wrong. And that is it. We are here. There's 4 of us, like I said. Come chat to us at any point.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. Just to point out, Catherine's slides are in the description on the Hoover app, so you can take all that wonderful information home with you and read it and share it with colleagues and whatnot. I think we've got time for one question. I think this kind of leads on nicely from your bonus tip, actually. Would you recommend using the platform-owned AI creative tools to widen creative options, or still produce content in-house to test? If people are aware of real versus fake, and this has an impact on the end result, why do the platforms encourage their use?
Because they built them, and I guess they want us to use them, right? And they think they can do it better. And they can't. I mean, I would say the other thing to bear in mind, like maybe Meta can do it well. I haven't tested Andromeda like a huge amount, but Google Ads for sure it's an e-commerce platform. You know, they're trying to sell things and they're built for that. And that's not really what we do. We try to sell people on values, and we have donation asks and things, but it's not quite the same transactional opinion. So I would say AI images and video, no, I wouldn't use it. I think it's not there yet, and people are really adept at trying to figure out like how it's wrong. And so I wouldn't use it personally. The copywriting tools within the systems, I would test it. I have found it's better to start with your own copy, and then maybe, like, I've used things like Claude if I say have multiple ad groups or ad sets that I'm trying to write copy for, and I have already developed a few of them and I'm starting to run low on ideas, I might put it into Claude and say, can you come up with 20 more that are like this? And then you have to edit it because it's never completely right. I don't know. I think it's different. Within the platforms themselves, Meta and Google, I've seen it. It's very mixed. Google Ads sometimes comes up with stuff that's okay, and sometimes it's like join now, and you're like, okay, well, I could have come up with that. That's not like revolutionary. Or free shipping. You're like, well, that's not really relevant, is it? So, yeah, I would test it and see. I mean, also they're developing all the time. They keep changing. So what I say now, based on the last 6 months, won't be true in 6 months. It might get exponentially better. But yeah, I would test it and always be skeptical.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Catherine, for your time.